Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, if you're lucky enough to be doing it too. I'm Bushka and Blitz, and this is the M6A2E1, the Tier 7 version of the event tank that was called the Goose, the experimental. I think it looks more like a T-Rex, and I've called this video Higher Power, because it's really, really tall, get it? It's higher, and it's like powerful, like a man sitting behind a red leather desk with a very masculine beard. And yeah, you get the idea. This tank is really cool. And the reason I'm making the video is I've actually had quite a few people asking about this tank, because although I wasn't aware that it was no longer a tank in an event, which I was aware of, sorry, but I wasn't aware that you could still get this from crates. And so people have been getting this from crates and crowing about it, and it's really pretty cool. If you ever do get one from a crate, it's a rare tank. It's a very cool tank. It's also a very good tank. So I picked it up and I thought I'd do something a little bit different. Doing a Tier 7 heavy is kind of a little bit different and something I think is worth having a look at. And it shares a lot of similarities with two other tanks that are American tanks as well. The T-29, which is the big dog of the Tier 7 heavy tanking. And I think this is better than the T-29, by the way. Well, at least I prefer it. It doesn't mean it's better. I just prefer it. Its turret is very good. And its lower glacis, upper glacis is phenomenal. Let's have a look at the armor, in fact. Have a look at that. That is taken from the perspective of a KV3, I think it was. And that is an awful lot of red. Red is not going to pen. Green is you'll get penned. That is an awful lot of not going to pen, which leads us to the point that the tank is an excellent hull down tank, but it's also an excellent side scraping tank. And that's the reason I prefer it to the T-29 now. It's got the ability, as long as you angle it, and that is not angled, it's got the ability to do some really fantastic things with the side scraping. And you can see those areas on the plate there, like that is a big bunch of armor. And it's 190 millimeters, but it's sloped as well. So you get anywhere from 220 through to like 310 millimeters of armor on the front of this tank. And you also get a very, very odd area at the base of the tank, which is just nearly 400 millimeters of pen, like on the lower glacis. It's the most random thing. What that means for you, if you can side scrape this thing, you'll bounce a lot of shots. If you can go hull down with this thing, you'll bounce a lot of shots. And it can go hull down. It's got 10 degrees of gun depression. All around, it's an absolute monster. And I actually quite like this for a crate tank. And I really, like, I've got an S35 out of a crate. I've got a Lerva out of a crate. And you've got to bear in mind, that's two tanks. And I consistently run 3 accounts, sometimes 4. Across various servers for videos and for events and for tournaments. So it's certainly not a regular thing. And I think the fact that you might get this out of a crate and if fingers crossed, it wasn't the biggest, most taken up event tank either. That's the other thing. It was a good tank and I did some reviews on them when the tanks came out of events, and it just absolutely wasn't taken up. You can see all those numbers up the top there are highlighting exactly what the numbers are, and if you want to peek close you can see all that stuff. But the fact that you get a tank like this that is quite exceptional at a couple of very, very important heavy skills is very cool. Now, of course, it has no armor on the sides. As you saw there, that AMX was able to absolutely smash me on the sides. But it has a lot of other things going for it. Now, this is the equipment loadout I ran with this tank. It needs all the help it can get with gun time. So nowadays you can run vertical stabilizer and enhanced gun lane drive, and I would recommend you run both of those things. And then obviously you've got your enhanced armor and your traverse speed buff, which is really important. And I want to have a quick chat here. I'm going to show you the numbers for the gun and everything along the bottom of the screen, and they're important. And watch them, but just listen as well. I put forward the idea, and I was having a chat to Martin Dogger in the Discord channel the other day, and I was also on stream with Scumbag Juju last week, and someone made the innocuous comment saying, if you could change, or a question, if you could change one thing about the game, what would it be? And Scumbag Juju had an idea, but I had a diatribe that went on for like 5 minutes, because I have this whole thing about the equipment sections, which I think are amazing, but the idea that you choose between optics and camo net on a heavy tank is just silly. If you removed optics from that section and put it next to the armor and forced heavy tanks to choose between view range and extending their more important stuff like armor profile, you would give a point of differentiation to tanks like the RU-251, for instance, where they would choose optics because the armor is of absolutely no benefit to them, or the SP-1C, and they would get far better spotting numbers because the heavy tanks wouldn't be able to just waltz up to a ridge like this and look 265 meters into the spawn. And at least they wouldn't be able to do it without taking any negatives for it. And you can see the gun depression on this tank working there. So I'm going to be silly enough to be talking to people in Minsk and around the traps about that, because I think that would be a really, really good idea. And I don't know how they'd implement it, but I think tanks like the 54 Mod 1 get the best of both worlds. They have great armor, they get to enhance that armor, and then they get to get the view range anyway, because no one's taking camo net. It's just such a soft choice. Put hit points and camo net in the same place and see what happens there. You might actually get people who are able to take camo net, and they might go for the synergy of camo net and optics, which isn't so bad as binoculars, and you end up with a really, really cool equipment loadout. Anyway, that's me. Now back to the goose. Not the goose, well, it's the Tyrannosaurus Rex, really. Look at the strength on this hull and this turret. I mean, and it's so enormous. This thing's like as tall as an E100, and it's a tier 7 tank. So, although it does have some huge benefits from its armor profile, its armor is so tall that you're going to see me get penned in just a second here, where I go out. And I actually think that I'm below the lip of this. Like, an IS-7 can't shoot over the top of this thing. And yet, the top of my tank is still able to be visible sideways. So I have to go back to side scraping it and belt. Like, this IS has got no chance of shooting over the top of that thing. Like, it's in line with the muzzle of his gun, and my whole turret is visible. Yet the turret is so strong that it can really dominate hull down in these choke points. People just can't do anything to it. And its gun is more than accurate enough. I mean, .38 dispersion is great, but the 200 millimeters of AP pen is what really gets it across the line. Its ability to stick with its AP rounds on pretty much all its same tier targets and consistently get penetration on those numbers is what drives the damage output of this tank. And that's really important. So I'm going to show you a couple of games here, just talk through the gameplay, talk about things in general. Try not to get too salty with the world, by the way. There's been a lot of salt out there. Could be something to do with global warming, drying up all the water and just leaving all the salt. But two things I would recommend with this tank is being quite aggressive. Your armor is literally like you are the tier 7 mouse. That's how I would put it to you. You are the tier 7 mouse, and that's a big call because the mouse is a really, really good tank in terms of armor profile. But you're super tall, super visible. You're much weaker in the sides than the mouse, but you, for all that, have a frontal armor profile that pound for pound rivals it. Not as good, but it does rival it. And you have 10 degrees of gun depression. Now that allows you to do some really neat things and go hull down in some really cool spots. I'm going to show you one particular spot that you can go hull down in a sec that you don't normally get that much joy from. We get a HE round there into that poor bugger because we're always looking for HE. There's a good example of some of the weak points of this tank. I get caught turning there to try to present a strong armor profile to this T-43 at the back, and immediately get penned in the side because you just don't have the armor on the sides to sustain any kind of incoming fire. Like, you're going to get hammered. You turn side on this, you're going to get hammered. And if you angle up slightly, you'll be fine. But if you over angle it to get like that 300 millimeters of frontal armor going on, you are going to get weak points all down your side, and you will get hammered, like good and proper, and deservedly so, because every tank should have some kind of a weak point. The aim time running all the stuff is good. It is a legit aim time when you start out, so bear that in mind. Without all the bells and whistles, it can be quite tough. Now, I'm going to go over the top here as well. Look how tall this tank is when you are going over the top of a hill. It's just absolutely mammoth. But the gun, 0.38 dispersion, if you get the aim time going down, really does serve the purpose. 3 tanks over there. We're very much in the ascendancy. We've got a lot of armor, so we're going to go over the top and show the world our weak points. Look, it's just a giant tank. See this corner up here? I'm going to do something that you really couldn't do in a lot of other tanks at this tier, which is both pronounced gun depression does it, but that's a really, anyone looking in front of me there, I'd be hulled down with an enormously tough armor profile, a big alpha gun, and lots of nasty damage, like 310 alpha on the 105mm, very, very solid, and getting up close and personal is very much the way. The mantlet is nigh and impenetrable, and you can see I'm angling away so that he's getting shots at the side of the mantlet. You've actually got this weird thing on the sides of this tank where you move the turret around a little bit, just like you do with the mouse, because your weak points are the cheeks either side of the gun mantlet. That's another reason why I think it's the mouse. Want to see how tough it is? Watch this. I mean, this is just tough stuff. Now, I get penned for 800 here by, I think it's the SU-152. Now, I'm not sure where he gets me. Shaky was telling me, or Mojo was telling me, I can't, New Zealanders all sound the same. Sorry, Shaky. Sorry, Mojo. Maybe you should take some elocution lessons from the Finn brothers. That's an in-joke. Watch how aggressive I can be side-scraping this tank. And like I was telling you about the cheeks, see how I've got the gun angled out to the left and I only pull it round when I'm ready to fire? There's a reason for that. It's because those cheeks are weak, but if you're side-scraping, I can angle the armor like this, so the turret is absolutely tough to pen, and the mantlet's really hard to pen, and the weak point is my right-hand gun cheek, and that is not visible because it's behind that very, very tall bit of rock there. Now, obviously, I do something wrong because the SU-152 gets a shot into me for a god-awful amount, and you're going to see that pop in just a second. I was on Discord, I think, and I was like, what the hell just happened? Oh my god, you wouldn't believe it. And then one of the New Zealanders set me straight. So I don't know where that weak point is, but it would be handy, but I just don't know. And you can see the IS there, we're trying to sneak a shot in. Can't get it done, but at the same time, we're just holding this corridor like a complete and utter boss. And I'm still over-angling that turret. There it is! Where the hell did that come from? What are you doing to me? I'm like stunned. Looking for a shot in the Yag, no worries. I completely reassessed my life choices and stopped being so aggressive. I have a sneaking suspicion he got it through the edge of my turret cheek. So beware, it is not impervious. You are going to have to wiggle that turret. And that's a wise thing to do in any case. But you can see that angling of the turret is the way you'd stop that. The actual turning the gun over towards your left-hand drive wheel and then reversing backwards and forwards means that they're only really seeing a very, very strong part of your armor profile. If you turn your gun to the right at all while you're side-scraping and show them the side of the turret, it's a bit like the sides of a T-30's turret, you'll get penned very, very simply through there. And that's not fun at all for anyone because it's very, very delicate as a side-scraper. But if you're good enough at it, you'll learn how to do it and you won't take a lot of negatives into the bargain. Now there's that SU. I am very much aimed up and ready for him. He's the one I really like. I'm looking for a shot. We get that in there. Happy days. It was so cheeky, hey. And there's the AMX M4. Just going to roll out here sideways. Now this might look a little bit silly, but the armor profile that I just showed there to that IS was bloody strong. Like, he might have been able to get a shot at the driver, but you can see there's a dead AT in front of me. There was very little chance, in my opinion, that he was going to get that drive wheel shot in, and there is a lot of other good parts of this tank that he was not going to get. Remember, you've got a 193mm armor plate on the front. It's angled already to do 250 dead set straight when you're looking at people for the most part. If you angle it up, you can get it to 300. And if you hide that drive wheel, you can have a 300mm side-scraping beast that is just not going to get touched. That's the T26... M6, sorry, not the T, M6A2E1. I'm Bushka on Blitz. Love your work, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Look after yourselves, and until next time, stay safe on the battlefield.